started. I mean, I'm still only like 3 months in, but I mean, I kind of hit the ground running there, and then they kind of just were all right away. So I've been with her on several. I've done one on my own, but it was several weeks ago. So I just kind of wanted to brush up on how to prepare myself to, I guess, if something's not a big deal, how to word it to make
Okay.
it sound like it's not a big deal, like,
Okay. So,
for instance, I
are
know
you
Matt
asking that
Baker always,
question how to do that?
what's that?
Are you asking the question of how do you prepare your buyers?
Well, so I just think it's helpful, like even going through the inspection, hearing so the ones I've only been to one different one. I can't remember his name, but I usually go to, I believe it's Matt Baker, who does the inspections. And I've noticed that it's kind of the same things that come up, which has helped me then in showing. So like, the things that aren't a big deal, he'll say, oh, this is an easy fix. And then I know when I'm doing a showing, well, this is an easy fix because I've seen that, but I think everybody probably does it differently. I've just experienced his for the most part. So just to know the tips and, tricks to not brush stuff off, but kind of ease people's worries about those kinds of things, especially going into a market where sometimes inspections don't happen.
Right.
Or the pre-inspection happens and they don't fix the things. So, that buyer has to come in and make those changes. So it's just, I kind of think the knowledge behind it is helpful. So I don't know.
Kristen,
I don't know what kind of things are common that come up, but that would be helpful to me.
you will learn those things as you go along. But Kristen, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, definitely you want to keep an ear out and listen very intently to your first several inspections. Every inspector is a little bit different, and every inspector has its little thing. I usually use Gaskin, and Paul's thing that he does in every single one, 12,000 homes burned to the ground every year because of the dryer. So changing out the dryer vents and cleaning it yearly is very important to him. And he brings that up at every single inspection. And it's
so Matt Baker's is the self-closing door in the garage. Every single one of them has been the self-closing door.
Every inspector has something different, and it's good to know. You want to have a solid core door at the garage, and you can tell them, hey, you might want to change this door. This is really hollow. It's like kindling for fire. So just do something that's a little bit better. Change it out when you get here. A lot of people like self-closed doors because they close automatically, and it can it stays shut, and it's a safety feature. When we're in walking through a house with a buyer, since you brought that up, I have chats with them during my initial buyer meeting, and I say, what's important to you? Have you bought a house before? And if they haven't, I say, what's your background? What do you know about houses? What do you know about the maintenance? What are some things that you've heard that are concerning for you that might scare you? And so we talk about that first. And then when we get to a house, it's my job, and I do it differently than everybody else, and that's okay. Everyone does something a little different with their showings. This is just what I do. I point things out that they need to be aware of that could be an issue for them without scaring them. So one of my clients that I'm working with actively, they're really concerned about a crumbling foundation. We're looking at 100-year-old homes, and that's something that's concerning to them. So I'll point out, hey, there's a few things going on over here. It looks mild to me. Let's see how it feels on the inside. If the floors are really sloping, then we'll go to the basement and take a look at what's going on. And a lot of times I'll just tell them, if it's concerning, get a structural engineer out here, find out what's wrong. You can do that type of thing if this is what's important to you. I just want you to be aware you're going to need to tuck point. That's maintenance over the years. You'll bring somebody out and they'll take out the old mortar and put new mortar in, and it keeps the foundation solid. The other thing I do is I look for water and I look for cracks. And if there's wood rot on windowsills or anywhere else, I kind of point that stuff out and say, hey, just want you to see this. This is something that you're going to have to do. It's maintenance. It hasn't been painted in a while. It looks real soft. So you could probably do it yourself, or you can hire a handyman to do it. And I'll show them things because I've heard the stories. I've heard them over and over again. Like, this is just a typical stepping crack. It's following the mortar line. That's not really anything to worry about. That's where you would do maintenance and tuck pointing. And I talk to them about that. Um, and I also always preface everything I say, I'm not an expert. My area of expertise is real estate sales. If this is something that is concerning to you, you need to get an inspector in here, and then you need to get a professional to take a look at it. I can show you things that I see that are very common, things that have been proven to be nothing more than maintenance. And my job is to point these things out to you so that you are aware, but not to scare you away from a home. And I always say that over and over again. So we'll go through and I'll say, hey, just want you to see this. There's a little slope here. You can feel it. Let's look in the basement and see what we see. And if we see that things have been fixed, if we've looked through the inspection, seller disclosure, and we see that they have disclosed a few things, okay, so now we have a fuller picture. How do you feel about it? And I try to leave it very open-ended, and I just point things out because I've been in the business 8 years. I've heard a lot of home inspections. I've done more buyers and sellers, but you become very aware of the same things to look for. And so I point things out without trying to scare anybody. Just say, hey, this is just so that you're aware, not to scare you, not to, get you distasteful in this home. Just know that this is going to have to be addressed down the road. You've got major difference in stairs that is like 10 inches instead of the regular 8 inches. You might have to mud jack this down the road. It can be difficult. It could be a trip hazard. It's a safety issue, whatever. I like to point out things that are safety and health issues, and the rest of it, I'm like, this is just stuff that you're going to have to do. When you own a home, you have to maintain it. You have to fix things.
I think that's an important piece that I just want to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I have seen that some younger people are not necessarily prepared for things not being perfect and having somebody else take care of them. I don't know how better to say that. And just the thought of not buying perfection is not necessarily in their repertoire because they've been watching HGTV. They've seen all these absolutely wonderful things, and it's the after that they're looking for, not the before,
Right.
or not even the in between. So a well taken care of, I love houses that belong to old people that have had them for years, because the HVAC, you can guarantee the HVAC is of the highest standard.
Yes.
They paid a gajillion dollars for it. They've had servicing 50 times a year, and the roofs are good, and the windows have been maintained even if they're old. So those things, though, do not impress like the younger generation. So the kind of things that impress them is
Granite countertops.
Oh my God, stainless steel, which is a bitch to take care of and clean fingerprints off of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your job to just, when you've got really unrealistic buyers, and let's face it, most of the new buyers are, you need to have a come into Jesus talk with them and say, look, this, and if they're, they're all excited, I have to tread very carefully because what I'm going to say, I just have to tread carefully. There's a few, and as you get into the business and you show more and more homes, there's a few agents that represent very specific flippers.
Yeah.
And they do a very pretty Monet. It looks gorgeous far off, but when you get in, you see all the little flaws. You can see all those little flaws and all the things that you're going to have to fix once you move in, even though it looks pretty in the pictures. Then we go to an older home that's solid. There are no issues whatsoever, but it needs cosmetics and it's cheaper.
That's the comparison we're talking about.
And I tell my clients, which house do you like better? Well, I really like this neighborhood and I like how big this house is and I like but it's just so dated. Yes, it's dated. It's cheaper. and you can turn this into whatever you want. This house has been maintained properly. We don't know what that house looked like before they flipped it. We don't know what that basement looked like before they put all that drywall up. They bought it for $25,000. Do you think it was a solid home? Oh, yeah. And it's teaching your
Now
client.
250,
Pardon?
now 250.
Right. So it's like you have to understand the difference of why sometimes it's better to buy an older home and slowly improve it. This is going to be an investment. You want something that you can make your own, that will be a solid investment in the neighborhood that you want, with the size that you want, and a layout that works. All the pretty stuff comes later. And those are the things that I have to harp on. And I have to tell people, look, this has an old roof. You're going to have to change that. That's something that you will need to do down the road. This has an old water heater. It's got rust on the bottom. You're going to have to change that sooner rather than later. This has got an old AC unit. It hasn't been changed, it looks like, since 92. And I don't have any records here. I don't see any records of where it's been serviced lately. You're going to have to replace all these things. The components, while it looks really pretty, the components are not. You're going to have to spend a lot more money as soon as you get in there updating these things, because those are the items that you need to be focused on, not the
Also,
pretty
you
countertops.
also should, excuse me, let me just jump in for a second.
Mhm.
You also should have a reasonable amount of knowledge of what replacement and repairing things cost.
Mhm.
And not only have a vendor in your pocket who is the most expensive, but also have the least expensive one. We just had to have our entire HVAC system changed from a geothermal, which is a really complicated system, to a regular system. It wasn't that old. We had two different pricing. One was 15,000, and that was with a 20% discount, and the other one was 8,000. So the 8,000 one is the one we use in our flips, because the guy has a small company. He wholesales the stuff and gets enough business from us that he has really good pricing. So when I'm out with how this has to relate is as a homeowner and as a person we do flips, when somebody gets like, oh my God, the HVAC has to be changed. They heard from their parents that their parents paid $12,000 for HVAC, where theirs may not be more than $6,000, or it might be just the furnace and not the AC, or their parents may have had to have, or somebody else may have had to have duct work done, or some. It's always, so you need to be able to be knowledgeable about what things actually cost, because in their mind, like if the buyer asks for a repair versus the seller doing a repair, you're going to always pay more money, because the buyer sees an old HVAC that still works, but they're going to have to replace it. They're going to ask for $10,000. If you just went ahead and replaced it, it might have been $5,000. So you really have to have a knowledge of that. And that's one of the things that you should be interacting with the inspector about. How much have you seen that these things cost? Oh, those are GFCIs, maybe $40 a piece to have an electrician come in and do them. Oh my God, that's a whole lot different than, oh my God, somebody's going to be here and it's going to cost $300 an hour. And I don't know how long it takes to fix one of those. And, they do this other stuff in their head. So the more you know, the better off you're going to be, the better results that you're going to have. So.
Is there some sort of list somewhere with that?
And
not just the fixes too, but I get all the time the question, how much is it to put in an egress window? Or how much is it to put in another bathroom down here in the basement? Or,
okay, so
switching out the electrical panel.
Just 1 second. I'm gonna ask Kristen to give you how much does it cost to put an egress window, and then I'll give you one. I'll give you that.
Anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000, depending on who you use.
Okay.
Same answer.
Mhm.
I've had an estimate for, we had an estimate for 6,000. We just had one done in a flip that was 3,400.
Mhm.
And it was the same exact egress window. Like it was no difference. It's just anywhere from. So that leads to your relationship with vendors and when you go to you see all those conversations that go on agents at Better Omaha. The reason why you want to pay, I'm constantly taking information off there. I love it when somebody answers back and says, these are the best answers that I got, or these are the best people, because I put them into my book and then I just put referred by a BHGRE agent. And any information that's pertinent to that.
I've attempted to find, do you guys get those then off the Bob list?
Yeah, Bob List is some, but Bob List is not even, none of the people that we use the most have I sent into the Bob List, shame on me, but
I can't even find it. I
Well,
can't even find it. So I
honestly-
don't even know where it is.
honestly, I get tired of referring people that I really, really love and who do a great job and are well priced, and then I can't get an appointment with them. So I wouldn't tell you who my handyman people were if you lit my foot on fire.
I have, well, do you know Jana Toms?
Do who?
Jana Toms?
No.
Oh, she's with Better Homes. I think she's only been with them for like a year. She came over from,
I know the name. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't
Anyway,
Yeah.
she's what she kind of got me hooked up with you guys. But anyway, so she's a friend, but she was telling me, she's like, I don't ever give my list to anybody. She goes, but I'll give it to you. I'm like, thanks. but her husband is a builder too. So they,
Yeah.
know any sort of person. So I thought that was so funny how, like, yeah, because that was her thing. She goes, if I give it away to too many people, then they're booked. And then I can't use them. So
Yeah, I have a few vendors, and I know that other people do too, who are like, we use regularly, and a lot of our team uses them, but they always prioritize us. So I'm constantly giving them as somebody, but they prioritize us. Our electrician, I can't get we're used to be able to say, can you go out like in a day, and check something out. And now he's booked all the time, Tim King, because everybody uses him. He's good. He's an actual real electrician, and he's responsible, and he's just a great guy. He's got a great family, and he gives back to us. We even did a deal for his mom, and that's how we got to know him. And so I don't give him out anymore except to our clients, and not because I don't want to support him or support our clients. I mean, our other agents. It's just that I know he's overbooked and he needs to hire more people. So, but then it's not him that goes out anymore. So, yeah, you don't ever want to give away the golden goose, but you hope that they lay enough eggs that that they can still support you as a business. So, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about what you do because I think Dawn touched on this really, really well. What you do in the writing an offer stage, and particularly in a market like this, which our market has changed, and we talked a little bit about this, that the speed of the market has changed. Not everything about the market, but the speed of the market has changed, which also changes the options that buyers have in writing an offer. More agents, more sellers agents, I've noticed, and maybe you guys have too, are doing pre-inspections that weren't doing them before, which I am 1,000% for that. Because otherwise this whole market and all of these homes sold with no inspections is gonna kick us in the butt as an industry a year down the road. And then that equates to bad reviews, and all of a sudden everybody's rating us the same way they do every other agent. So I'm really, really happy to see more pre-inspections done. So with that said, without a pre-inspection, let's just talk about what I think you have to rate, you have to measure the risk ability with your buyer early on. Are they a person that is willing to take more of a risk or less of a risk? And I think you need to know that from we've talked about a zillion times, the pre-buyer conversations and interviews and questionnaires. Knowing what level they are, you have several options, and the options are, we're going to do an inspection. We'll talk about radon separately, but we're going to do an inspection and period. That's it. We're going to do an inspection with everything that's pertinent to that inspection and all the different options with the A, B, and C options. Or you can be more specific. We're going to do an inspection that is, and I don't even think for buyers informational purposes only is specific enough. Kristen, you have an opinion about that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Now,
Opinions about that.
At the end of what I say, then I want you to come back with your thoughts on that too. You can say, looking for the purpose of, or to be inspecting for major items over $1,000 in repair. Okay, that also is not specific enough. Because is it over $1,000 for each thing? Is it over $1,000 total? And then what happens? What happens after that? So the verbiage used in inspections, I think, is one of the biggest killers of the possibility of closing a contract. So that is number one that I think is incredibly important. And listening to Dawn's, she gets really specific about that. The other one would be only to check the HVAC, only to check the roof, only to check the sewer system, something very specific. In the event that the roof needs to be replaced, buyer, you can also be specific about this. Buyer agrees to pay up to $2,000 towards the repair. In the event, you can always, anything is okay as long as it's legal and what's the other word? It's ethical and legal. You can agree, buyer and seller can agree on anything. So just don't be, if you don't have enough room, go on to an addendum, because how those words can bite you if you don't specify correctly. I'll give you a for instance. We wrote an offer on a home that had everything had been redone, beautiful kitchen. They'd done a really good job with their revamp of the kitchen. The upstairs bathroom, really nice, high quality, really good stuff. New floors. They hadn't finished the bathroom downstairs. We wrote the offer. In the offer, it said, complete the bathroom. It was unspecific, non-specific to as much as it needed to be specific. But it was completed, complete the shower, complete the flooring, complete the blah. The assumption, which we never want to make assumption, was they were going to complete it to look like the one upstairs. It was a piece of crap when they finished it. It was horrible. It was terrible, probably the worst tiling job we've ever seen. So we do the walkthrough within 24 hours of closing. We go there. The bathroom, the shower door was all wanky and didn't even close. It was some cheap sink and cabinet that they put in there. And so we go back to the seller's agent. Hey, well, she said, you didn't say that it had to be the same exact materials as was used upstairs, which we didn't say that. We said something, but it wasn't specifically that. Our buyers ended up pulling out, and then they were really upset. Like they were going to report us to somebody because, you know, we had not really done anything wrong, but we hadn't done it right enough. Hadn't been specific enough we assumed that the quality was going to be the same. And it wasn't it wasn't unfixable horrible. But we ended up giving them their earnest money back because the seller refused to give the earnest money back. So it has to cost sometimes in order for us to be really aware, but specific wording. And if you don't have the words, go to another agent, go to your mentor, go to your broker, something, but be specific with what is it that you're looking for? What are the results of that going to be? And what is it going to either cost or not cost the seller? So mitigate the risk on the side of the buyer, mitigate the risk on the side of the seller. And I will tell you that any agent who's been doing business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, as I have, is going to have many of those stories, but hopefully you learn as you go along that you have to be able to defend it in a court of law. Whatever you've said. Have you ever watched any lawyer shows? Well, you don't have to watch lawyer shows anymore. You can just watch the government, the things.
I've been in court numerous times, been on the stand. I love all that stuff. Bring it on.
Yeah, I love it too, but not when you're trying to defend yourself.
Yeah, I know.
You just have to be very specific, and I you guys to get in trouble. So, and as an agent, we can never be educated enough, but we can go to our peers and our people who mentor with us and brokers and get more information. So questions about that? Kristen, you want to jump in on for informational only?
So yeah, what I do, and I explain the way that I've written it out lately is, and I also, after we write it up, I'll give you the verbiage in a minute because it's a little different every time. I don't have a set tried and true text block that I use. But I call the other agent and I talk to them and I find out whatever I can. The key is picking up the phone and actually getting that relationship with the other agent. You guys have heard that before, but I'll talk to them and I will explain what I mean by informational purposes only. I had a client, and thankfully we are under contract now, but we had 17 offers that we had written, 13 of which we were the runner-up, the first runner-up, and it came down to inspections every time. My guys he's an engineer and he's quite comfortable with doing everything himself or hiring it out. But it's the whole buyer beware and wanting to know what it is that they're buying. So they wanted a home inspection specifically for informational purposes so they knew what they were buying. And unless the foundation was crumbling or they found a ton of black mold in the house, they were planning on taking that because anything else they could deal with. But black mold was scary to them, as was a crumbling foundation that would cost tens of thousands of dollars to fix. So, and I explained that to the other agent. Finally, the 17th one worked by having that conversation. But what I put in there on different occasions, and sometimes it wins and sometimes it doesn't. With a different client, it did win. And it just states that there's a best practices out there that Justine sent out several weeks ago, and I'll have to send this to you if you don't have it, but it's about the new contract and what to put into the different boxes for clarification. So this one was number 4 on her best practices sheet, and it was home inspection to be for informational purposes only. Seller will either take the home in its current condition or cancel the contract. There will be no repairs to seller. Then I go on. Buyers are specifically looking for major defects with foundation and how do I do it? Whatever they're looking for, whatever's important to them, whether it's foundation or water in the basement or what have you. Unless they find this, buyers plan on taking the home in an as-is condition. But again, it's just talking to the other agent and explaining it in a way that they understand that you're on the same page, and then you write it down. I know Tom, did he just have the ATA, or are we getting ready to have the ATA where we're talking verbiage?
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. So that's a good ATA to watch. And that's one I'm going to clue in on too, because I need to get my verbiage down better.
Would you be on that call tomorrow, Kristen?
I'm planning on it, but
Okay.
you know, my day goes crazy when the kids aren't in school.
Lock them in a bedroom or something.
I've tried. They pick the lock.
Right?
So can you either, be there and ask the questions about inspection specific? I think that would be a really good, because this is about writing the best offers. This whole month is about writing the best offers. So
Right.
yeah, that would be great.
So that's what I do right there in a nutshell. You know, like I said, I can't really comment on anything that Dawn has given us because I haven't watched her videos yet, and I need to go back. She is dynamic, and I'd like to watch that and then learn from her. I've been in this 8 years, and I'm still learning. Every day I learn something new that I didn't know, and I think that's an asset. And I think you two probably would agree on that also, that you learn every day and you just become the best you can be.
Okay. Questions? Okay. I wrote down a few things that I wanted to make sure to talk about. Radon. So radon used to be in the contract. I don't know if you guys were writing contracts then, but it used to be in the contract that it deferred to that the seller would pay to have radon mitigated if it tested for over 4.0. That's not in the contract anymore. And I don't remember the last time we did a radon inspection, other than after people closed for radon inspection. Personally, I would not move into a house without a radon inspection, but as a point of a contract, I would make sure it was just something I did myself. So, and actually I wouldn't even necessarily do a radon inspection. I would just have a radon system put in myself. So if it was me buying a house, I would schedule a radon system to be put in if it wasn't in the house, before the contract even closed. I would already have it scheduled so that like the couple of days after, within a couple of days of the home closing, the radon inspection would be, the radon system would be put in, which is an option you can talk to your clients about if it is an issue for them. And that's exactly what I would tell them. What I just told you is here's one of your options is, if it's something that's that important to you, which in my mind, it should be important to people. Then here's what we can do. We can get permission to have somebody come into the house and measure for that. Once we get past whatever the initial contingencies are, have somebody come into the house and schedule it which is great, because then you have like 4 or 5 weeks before you have to worry about the scheduling anyway. So that's an option, but everything has an option. And that's what I find to be most important is, I just use radon as an example, but it could be, they want to have the lot measured because they're going to put in fencing. It doesn't need to be a contingency of the contract if it's obvious that it's a home that is in a subdivision where you go to DC assessor and you don't see any. There's no infringements because there's no there's no fencing put in as it is. So there's lots of things that you can tone people down on their concerns about. Just like you said, there's certain inspectors that, the garage door, he may have gotten, hurt with a garage door that was faulty at one time. There's certain things that just you can find out early on. Like, tell me about some things that would really scare you about a home inspection. It's a great question to ask a potential buyer. Like, what would it be? And it could be something that you didn't even think about, and you downplay, and they are like all in their stuff because you've downplayed it. So what would be something that would scare you about a home inspection? Well, if if there was a potential for fire because of electricity. So me, my dad was an electrician for 50 years. And so I get freaked out about electricity things like that. I don't want anything that's got a possibility of hurting my family or a fire or things like that. So find out what those touch points are early on, so you don't pass them by casually because it's not something you worry about. I hate tornadoes. Like, scares the shit out of me, tornadoes. Laura doesn't think they're scary at all. She grew up in Iowa, and they watched them as they were happening. I wanted to move away the first time a tornado happened here after I moved here. So I wouldn't buy a house without a basement, and one that's really accessible, and it's not like some kind of, feels like a prison, So I'm telling you these things and being transparent because you can get your client. If you don't have your clients being transparent to you, they're not going to stay with you. I will tell you, you've got a very shallow basis. The ground floor is very shallow. So make sure that you get personal with people in a way that protects them from getting halfway down the road and being disappointed.
I have a quick question in regards to that. So I think I mentioned this whenever the last time I saw you, Carol, on Zoom, I don't remember. But I put together, I took a couple different agents and the Buffini information and put together my own buyer's questionnaire. Mm-hmm. And I'm still kind of adjusting some of the graphics on it, so to speak. But anyway, I feel like I have a lot of questions. And so some of them kind of go to your point of, I guess my point is, when like with the buyer questionnaire, how many questions are too many questions on a buyer questionnaire before they get through it and they're like, oh my God, I'm not doing this. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, trying to get all of this information. And of course, some of it can just be in the meeting when you meet with them. I get all that, but like,
answered your own question.
Okay.
So you those things would be in the meeting. I would say that when we talk about, we're going to get an inspection, here's kind of what the price range is, or we may not get an inspection. These are the reasons why we wouldn't get an inspection. Okay. We have one in front of us, a pre-inspection. These are what your options look like as we're talking about it. But in the buyer questionnaire, you would maybe ask them, you wouldn't even ask them about an inspection in a buyer question.
And actually, I don't have anything on there about the inspection, but I'm trying to like.
But I probably would say that in that is like, we will have a conversation about inspections.
Okay.
Is there anything that is of the highest interest to you that I can speak to when we talk?
So just like a footnote at the bottom.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'd be as did you see the one that I sent on Monday after the?
Yeah, that was a really nice one.
Yeah.
All the graphics and stuff in the back. I was like, whoa, how do you get all these?
Yeah. Yeah. But the information itself there wasn't that much.
Right.
It was more.
And that's what I tried to like. Yeah. I mean, I probably need to go through it again and maybe I try to figure out how to get as much information with as few questions as possible, but getting what I feel like is important, of course. So yeah, it's kind of a disclaimer. Huh?
That question is a good question to have in your questionnaire. Things like, what's most important about whatever the topic is. Or rate the importance of these things. I don't know, something like that, that's really easy to fill out. Not a lot of like wordy stuff. A lot of check boxes would be good.
Yeah, I've got some, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to throw out, there's my youngest monkey behind me.
Yeah.
Just to throw out what I do, I get their basic information, what you would just, hi, what's your name? What's your phone number? So I get email. If anybody else is going to be a decision maker, stress that importance, but then we have a conversation and all of those questions so that they're not bombarded. Basically, the client questionnaire is fluff. It's just their contact information, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever they want to give me. What's the most important thing to you in a home? What's the least important thing? What scares you the most about buying a home? And then I'll go into full conversations and I'll get more in depth in a conversation so that I'm asking them questions, but they're not feeling inundated with their questionnaire.
Yeah.
Because once you get them talking, you hear so much more than just the words coming out of their mouth.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can totally surmise what is the most important thing to them. And a lot of times it'll be the layout. It'll be something completely different than what they originally thought.
Probably the most common response that I give in one of those conversations is, I understand. I'm going to make a note of that.
Mhm.
I get that. I'm going to make a note of that. Thanks for sharing. That's me constantly through that conversation is, I'm going to make a note of that. Oh, so that's a really important thing to you. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else that you can think of that's like really important that to you is something you want me to make sure that I eliminate on anything that I would send you. Like, don't send me any houses that are not ranches.
And the conversation piece, I don't think I will have a problem with. That's not going to be an issue for me. I think, because again, I'm such in the early stage of this, I'm still trying to get a client. So for me, it's really about like, I think I've got one lined
Like,
up.
what's
But
intrusive?
anyway.
You don't want to be intrusive.
Yeah, I mean, but it's really about walking that fine line of making myself look competent, but also not being like this like crazy stalker agent kind of crazy lady with 17 pages on a questionnaire. So it's kind of this like, it's just learning how to balance it all and doing it and making I'll probably have some fuck ups, but figuring out along the way, but what's going to be the best way kind of to.
My best advice to you is keep it simple.
Okay.
Actually, I have
Yeah.
one that says,
It's a perfect
Came
shirt.
prepared.
as simple is my word for the year. So actually Laura bought me 2 different shirts that's from Life is Good that say simple on it. Kind of keeps me in perspective. Yeah, keep it simple and answer a lot with a question. Those 2 things will help you to get them talking more than, I think that's one of the biggest fears that new agents have is, oh my God, what if they ask me questions or that I have to answer that I don't know the answer to? More than just, I mean, you're an excellent conversationalist. We're not even questioning that. All y'all are. But having them ask questions. Oh, that's my other go-to is, interesting. That's interesting. Let me get back to you. I'm going to go to somebody. They love it when you tell them that there's somebody with more answers than you. Honestly, whether you're a new agent or you're an old agent, is when you tell them, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, and I'm going to go to my mentor, my broker. For me, I am a broker, but I say I'm going to go to my broker owner of the company because I want a final, like, this you can take to the bank answer. And people are like, oh, that's great. Like, really good. So the agents who act like they have all the answers, I'm like, oh, you're going to get yourself in so much trouble.
Well, I think too, like your reaction, how you just showed it, when you react to somebody's question, like, oh, that's a really good question. It makes them feel like they've come up with this like genius thing. And like, oh, they're like that. They're really, so there's all kinds of relationship stuff going on there and building up people's
Absolutely, that's all.
egos
Yeah,
and all that
yeah.
stuff.
Well, that's also, you know, in some of the trainings that I've had in coaching is, even though I know the answer,
Mhm.
is to go there.
How you respond makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I let them stump me. Even though I know the answer,
Yeah.
when it's something that, you know, they think they're trying to catch me, there's a lot of people out there, they're going to try to catch you. So I let them stump me, and I do exactly what Carol did. You know, that's a really great question. In all my however many years, and I generally throw that at them so they can see I'm not just a fly-by-night person. I'll say, you know, in my 8 years of doing this, I've never had that question. I really like that. Let me get a better answer for you than what I have. So I'll follow back up with you.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is for people to ask questions because they don't want to look stupid. I mean, I see that all the time on, you know, 100 Days to Greatness. New agents, like, they'll always preface it with, this might be a really stupid question, and you guys might already know the answers to this question, but and then they ask the question.
I've asked so many what I consider stupid questions in my life, but it's just like we were talking about how you said at the beginning of this, like, I've owned a home from the 20s, the 50s, the early 80s, and now I have a brand new home. I've done construction on all of those homes. And when those people come in to tell me stuff, I ask a million questions. They probably think I'm a moron, but when it comes to now that I'm doing this, I can talk all day about water seepage and where it probably tell you exactly where it's coming from, because
That's fantastic.
but because I've asked all of those questions because I'm curious. And like, back to your point, I personally, if I'm going to buy an older home, I'm going to look for one that somebody has lived in for 50 years and they haven't touched any sort of plumbing. They haven't touched any electrical, because those are the ones that aren't going to be fucked up inside when you start tearing walls down, like, because it hasn't been messed with. Like, so there's definitely, but all that stuff, like, it's just, but it's always
Jackie,
asking questions, because if you don't know, the only way you're going to know is to ask those questions.
You can sell that about yourself, because I do. When I'm talking to new buyers, and particularly people who are first-time home buyers, I always say, Laura's going to do because I don't go show homes anymore. I always say, Laura's going to be doing the showing of homes, but you know what? If somebody was going to be showing me homes, I'd rather have it be Laura than me, because I am kind of squirrel kind of person. And she notices everything, because we've done flips and we've done remodels, and she sees potential, and she can tell you how much it's going to cost. And she knows whether something is something to be scared of or it's an easy fix. So
Right.
You sell that about yourself. Sell the fact that you are experience. You don't have a lot of experience in the real estate business itself, but you have a lot of experience in the side that honestly I think matters, like a lot.
Do you have a client for me then?
I have a client for you.
Do you have somebody for me?
I may. I'll. You just opened my mind. So yeah, I'm a referral person. So
Well, thanks.
Yeah, and those the kind of clients also that would really appreciate you are investors and people who do flip.
And I want to invest. That was my thing. I was going to do this past summer, and that's when I was like, you know what? I really should just get into the real estate thing. Like,
yeah, and do both.
Yeah, I'm still looking for the investment piece, because now I'm afraid because everything's so expensive. But
yeah. One other thing, we're past our time, but one other thing that I want to, I'm
fine.
We kept talking. We didn't start till later. Is that when you are giving on, in a purchase agreement, when you're giving names of inspectors to your clients, always give them 2 or 3 names. And you can tell them that you've had experience with all 3 of these. And they'll generally say, I don't even know what to ask. Which one would you recommend? So, you can say, hey, this is this Chad Alvers does old homes. This is a 1920s home. He'd probably be the best expert for an old home. But Paul Gaskin does old homes as well. It's just not what his specialty is. He does also a lot of other homes, but this one's good with first time home buyer. You can tell them that, kind of lean them in the direction of what you think would be best for that home, but
Mhm.
make sure that you're not saying only this one and that's it. So even though they end up coming back to you and saying, I can't deal with this. Which one would you recommend? So.
Real quick, I have a form. I have a sheet that I send out to my clients because once we get under contract, I do a next steps email. And one of the forms that I send out is my inspectors list. The top has inspection companies. The bottom has radon companies. It just covers them both. And at the very bottom, I put an annotated note, a disclaimer that says, what did I write? I have to shed it to you, but it just basically says, these are just suggestions of local professionals in the area to use. If you choose to use another inspector, make sure they are ASHI certified and are local and know the local customs and codes.
Will you send that to me, share it with me? And
I'll send it to you. Yep.
Yeah.
I'd like one, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do the same thing with my lenders, and I say, these are lenders that other clients, they're in no particular order. These are lenders that other clients have had success with. If you choose to use a different lender, please make sure that they are a local lender that are easily accessible and know the local standards of our real estate market.
Cool.
And I make sure I have those little caveats in there so it doesn't look like I'm pushing them to use somebody on my list, but that I am pushing them to use somebody local. Just kind of covering yourself, because you don't want to say, well, my house burned down because the inspector you told me to use. No, seriously, you want to cover yourself, because we're in a very litigious, and you, Jackie, of all people should know this, we're in a very litigious country, and you just have to cover yourself and make sure that when you say, yeah, my guy is great, but there are other great people out there, always cover yourself. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but you do.
It sounds ridiculous when you say it, but I know that it's not ridiculous, because people are nutty and they want to blame everybody else, but that's a whole separate conversation. But
sure, but you get it. Yeah.
I lived in and did real estate in California, and the disclosures are this thick.
Yeah.
Like, there are disclosures. This is the absolute truth. There are disclosures that are given out in every single transaction about different migrating birds that have flown over homes. Yes. Yeah. There's disclosures about everything. And I think California is probably the most litigious state of all. So, your umbrella policy that is recommended that you have as a realtor. $1 million used to be like a really good one. Now the agents that I have been interacting with and talking about they're all increased. They've done it already to 10 million or 20 million because of that. So, not trying to scare you, just make you a good agent. Just CYA at all points, and CYA your clients. So that's, most important is the better you cover your clients, the better you're covering yourself. And it's always best to deal with the truth. So much easier to deal with the truth than when it's happening than later. So.
But don't you think it's also important too, like when you're talking about the truth, is really just saying, okay, well, it's kind of like, Kristen, what you said, there's kind of this, like in terms of inspectors, you have an umbrella, you've got 3 or 4 names and you let them choose. You let them make the decision. That way, if something happens,
this was your choice.
You made the choice, but giving people the power to make their own choices, but handing them kind of the table with choices on it, so to speak.
Right. You can't eliminate certain inspectors, but you really do want to eliminate certain inspectors.
Right.
what
Well,
you
but that's
can
why I
do-
have you group of agents to tell me who the best like 4 or 5
Yeah,
are.
I'd like that list. Whatever that list is, I'd like you to send that
There's
to me.
nothing, you will not see a list.
There's nothing in
Darn
writing
it.
because you can get sued by that person.
Big time.
Never put anything in writing that is disparaging of a professional.
Oh
You
no, I would
can
never
s-
do that.
This is the way I've gotten around it. There's some banks that I just hate using. And I'll say, this is great. If this is your choice, that's fine. I need to share with you my experience. And I need you to be aware that there will be a delay. They are not known for timeliness. They will mess up. They will ask for the same information over and over and over again and say that they never got it. And that's okay. That's how they do their business. But you have to go into it knowing that you're going to be frustrated, that they're not going to do a timely um, transaction, and that you will be delayed. If you go in with a lot of patience and knowing that, we'll be fine. But I have not had a closing on time with this company ever. So as long as you know that, I'm happy to use them. It's your choice who you want to use.
Again, it's your choice. Yes.
It's your choice.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I tell them that, and 9 times out of 10, they'll change and use somebody else. Well, who would you suggest? Here's my list. Take a look and look at somebody else. You know, it just, they need to
Again, it's your choice.
but I have not had a good experience with this particular bank before. And it's been not just once type of thing. So you know, you can share with them and just say, I'm happy to use them, but you just be aware of what to expect. And that covers everything, I think. That keeps us somewhat safe out of realtor jail or being sued for defamation or anything else.
Okay, I think we're there.
I'll send a follow-up. I'll send you both of those lists, the one of my lender and the one of my inspector, so that you can see how I have it. I've got our header on it, and our footer with our contact information and those disclaimers. And, you know, do with it what you wish.
And I'll send those over to you. Are you gonna send it to them?
I'm going to send it to you,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
you can send it
you
out to
can
everybody
send
if that's
it
all right.
if you want. I was just gonna
Dana
say-
and Jackie, you're both just betteromaha.com?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll send it to both of you. I'll send all 3.
If you guys could be on ATA tomorrow, bring your questions. I want you to bring some good questions. Okay.
I'll be at my inspection, so I won't be able to,
Okay,
I'll
you
have to
can't
watch
go
it
to
on the
inspection.
playback.
This is more important than your inspection.
Yes, ma'am.
The inspection, after the inspection, make sure you watch the video and then you can write up the
Got
paper.
it.
Okay.
There you go.
And then in the future, you just put every Thursday, 12 to 1, ATA, not negotiable.
Mhm.
Don't schedule over it.
In fairness, I did not schedule this one. It was just passed down to me because they're out of town. So
Okay, right.
I didn't schedule it. So,
you're absolved.
okay, thank you. Thanks.
You've been absolved.
Bye.
Yes.
All right, bye ladies, good luck.
Bye.
Thank you.